Hello Year 8, I'm going to show you how to make a basic bread dough which you will then shape into 6 bread rolls before baking them. The ingredients that you need are 300 grams of strong white bread flour, or you could bring wholemeal, but it must be strong flour, which is the ideal flour for making bread. It's got a very high gluten content. That's the one that makes the dough really stretchy and elastic. Make sure your oven's preheated. It'll be 200 degrees if it's electric or gas mark 6. Then you're going to get a mixing bowl from your unit cupboard and put in your flour. You are going to put in your yeast. Yeast comes in a little tin like this, which is, you'll need 3 teaspoons. Or a sachet of yeast, which comes in a little box with some sachets in, little packets, one of those. It's basically about 7 grams that you need. So, 7 or 8 grams. This is dried yeast, so I'm going to put in 3 teaspoons. 1, 2, 3. And don't forget, this is the biological raising agent that we use in bread making. 1 teaspoon of salt, or a big pinch, but it's helpful to measure it onto a teaspoon of salt. In it goes. Salt is for flavour and to strengthen the gluten. A tablespoon of oil. Bear with me while I just go and get the oil. Okay, don't forget, tablespoon is the bigger spoon. It's the equivalent of 15 millilitres. 1 spoon of oil. In it goes. Now you can give that just a quick little mix before you add in your water, and you must use warm water. So use the tap water, but make sure it's not too cold and it's not too hot. It should be warm, and this is the ideal temperature for activating the yeast. And I've measured it into my measuring jug, 175 mils. In my jug I've got about 200, so I'm going to add it gradually and just make sure I've got a soft dough, not too sticky, but also not too dry. So on your recipe it says make a well in the centre and add the oil. We've done that. Gradually add the water a little at a time. Use a metal spoon to mix to a rough dough. So add some water, probably do about half of the water to begin with. Give it a quick mix around. It will start clumping together, so we call this a rough dough, where it's starting to come together a bit more. Do not add all the water at once. Do not add too much water, because you don't want your mixture to be too wet and sticky, because then you have to add more flour and so on. So try and get it just right. In a minute, I'm going to bring the dough together with my hands and turn it out. In the bowl, I'll bring it together and then I'll turn it out onto the table, kneading for, the recipe says 10 to 15, but really sort of 5 to 10 minutes is adequate, because we only have a 1 hour lesson time, don't we? So, nearly there. It's looking a bit like that at the moment. Okay, so I suggest at this point you can turn it out. Where you've got any dry flour in the bowl, just tap that out. Make sure that you've got all the mixture out of your bowl. And off your spoon. And I would suggest you take your mixing bowl over to your sink and get it soaking in your hot soapy water. It will make it a lot easier to wash up. Otherwise the flour dries on, it's quite tricky to wash. We have got scourers and brushes that you can use. So you can see the dough now, it's kind of coming together, and you can start kneading it. And you want to do that until the dough is nice and smooth. what this is doing is developing the gluten in the flour, making the dough nice and stretchy and elastic. Okay, so a bit of hard work. Can you see how the dough now is coming together? It's getting smoother. You can use 2 hands if you like. You can just use 1 hand, but you're kind of folding it, stretching it, turning it, and just doing that for a while, and it will get softer and smoother. The gluten is developing. It will get the gluten strands will get longer and stronger and stretchier. And what this is doing is enabling that yeast to rise in the dough, and you get a really good texture of bread. Soft dough gives the best texture, I think. If you haven't got enough water, the dough is too sort of stiff and it's difficult to knead. But equally, you don't want it to be really wet and sticky. This is just right. So about 5 or so minutes is probably adequate. You will have a baking tray, which you'll find in your unit cupboard. You're going to line it with some paper. And when you're ready, you're going to divide your dough into 6 equal pieces. Best way to do that is when you've got your ball of dough, cut it in half, and then cut each half into 3 thirds, which will give you 6 equal pieces. And then you can shape your rolls. Now, in the lesson, if you work quickly, you'll have more time for shaping and proving. If you're a bit slow at getting your dough done, it means you'll just have to do basic shaping and just get them into the oven, because we need to allow for the baking time. It's about 20 minutes to bake, and we have to allow for that. Okay, and once they're in the oven, that's when you can make sure your area is clean and tidy. You wash up in hot soapy water and dry thoroughly and put things away in the right place. And you need to wipe down your tables, and at the end of the lesson you're going to wipe your sink area, make sure it's nice and clean, please. All right, we're nearly there. So this is a basic bread dough. I am using, as I said, a white flour. You could use wholemeal. A few students have done that, which is great because you're getting more fibre. That type of flour may need a little bit more water, that's all, because it's kind of a bit more absorbent. Okay. So it's feeling lovely and smooth. I think that's probably enough kneading. It's feeling nice and stretchy. So use a table knife, and if you cut in half first, and each half into thirds, which will give you 6 equal pieces. And then your baking tray with your lined paper, like that, and you can have a go at shaping. So I very often like to do just nice round ones. You're trying to get them smooth without a lot of creases. So just I hold the dough in my hand and kind of fold the edges into the middle and just go round a couple of times. Round and round. I don't know if you can see that. I'm just kind of tucking the dough in, and you end up with something that's nice and smooth like that one. And space them out evenly on the tray. If you're good at plaiting, you might want to create 3 sausages of dough and plait them. I can't really show you that on the video because it won't be very clear, but in the lesson. But we only do those sorts of shapes if you are kind of quite far ahead, because it obviously takes longer. The priority is to get these kind of baked on time. So doing nice round ones, I think, is fine. There's 3 of them. In your lesson, we'll provide you with a little bit of glaze in a measuring jug with a pastry brush, which you brush, it's like an egg milk combo, I think we'll have. Use a pastry brush, like that, and you brush that over the top of the dough. And the reason for the glaze is to give it a kind of golden brown finish. When it bakes, makes it look more appetizing, and that's what we call a finishing technique, glazing. Okay, so I'm spacing these out evenly on my tray in 3 by 2 to give me 6, and they are looking nice and smooth and round. And I'm just trying to lift the tray so I can show you what they look like. Try not to tip them up. Okay, can you see that? They smell nice, actually. You can kind of smell that kind of bready aroma already. Now, if you are really, really quick at getting to this stage, look at the clock, and it might be that you can let them prove for a little bit. And what this means is the fermentation is happening. The yeast will produce little bubbles of CO2, and it will help rise the bread, increase the volume of it. But you'll have to see how you are for time. You usually, if you've got a nice soft dough, you tend to get a fairly good product anyway. So don't worry too much. Okay, so I'm going to go and find some glaze, and then I'll show you how to do that. So in this measuring jug, I've got just a little bit of egg wash, and all you do is brush it over the top of the bread. So that's our glaze. When you've done that, again, if you've got time, a very quick prove. If not, listen for your teacher's instructions. You'll need to get them into the oven, and baking time is 20 minutes. You are looking for your bread rolls to be golden brown, risen. When you tap them underneath, it should sound hollow. Okay, so there's a few ways that you can check if they are ready. So these are now ready to go in the oven, and in 20 minutes I'll show you what they look like when they come out. Okay, so after 20 minutes, get your check on your bread rolls. They should be golden brown and risen, and if you tap them underneath, they should sound hollow. Okay, so just remember, wear your oven gloves, be careful getting them out of the oven. Put the tray on top of the hob, leave them for a few minutes before putting them into your container, and the paper goes in the bin. Check the tray is clean, dry, and put that back into your unit cupboard. And that's about it. Have a great lesson baking your bread, Year 8.